Hello and welcome back to the cafe. So today I wanted to do a little 4-piece sampler, and I've decided to, here's my little swatch. I'm using these graphite colors by Kiritake, and here's the swatch for them. I want to use this kind of burgundy purplish color, this burnt umber color, and this really beautiful olive green color. So that's what we're going to be working with today as far as watercolor goes. Activate these three real quick. I've got my squirt bottle. It's always good to have that handy. Some water, a towel, and then we're going to be using Canson watercolor paper today, and I've just cut it down and taped it to my board. I also just bought these, I love these Sharpies with the chiseled edge. Here, maybe that's better. And I also got these I like the fine liner Sharpies, but they are a little bit bigger. So now I have this fine line Sharpie, and it is truly a fine line. These are permanent, and they're saying that the ink won't bleed, so that is yet to be seen for me, but I do believe it. And then I've got my Signo Broad gel pen, and I'm wondering, I cannot find the fine liners in the Signo anymore. If anybody knows where I could find a fine liner, I'm only able to find this broad now. Please let me know. I've also got a charcoal stick. It's a deep black. And then I just grabbed an assortment of brushes. I've got I got a few rounds here, a cat's tongue, and a script liner. So I figured we would just play around, but I do have a specific idea for this project. What I'd like to do is do some black pen work first and then go over it with the watercolor. So let's go ahead and get started. So at this point, my idea is to get some water in here, and I want to see if I can get some blur. I'd like some blur off the charcoal, and it's okay if it doesn't happen. And it's really not happening, which is kind of nice. There's a little bit, it is skewing the color a little bit, which I don't mind because it's going to make the watercolors just slightly more muted. And I really like that look. So since I've got this one all damp, let's go ahead and get some color in here. I really want kind of a more faded look to these so that all of that will shine through. You know, my mark making, I am always putting it on top, and so I thought it would be really fun today to mute it out, because of course we can always add more to the top later. But I love switching things up and experimenting and seeing what we can come up with. Okay, that's really juicy. I've got a straight line through there. Kind of want to mess that up. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a little bit more pigmented on this one. I'm even gonna muddy it up a little bit. Whew, that is so pigmented. Take some of that color out of here. Boy, when I said more pigment, I didn't realize it was gonna be that intense. I really do want a lighter touch on there. I'll just transfer some of this over here. And add a little bit more dark in. What the heck? So these are great for little warm-ups. I enjoy finding different ways to do watercolor warm-ups, because sometimes, you know, you see people working. Sorry about my phone. Hold on a second. This is a great way to just get the creative juices flowing. And I don't always, you know, it's not always easy for anybody. I had the blessing of going through a very long time in my life of having inspiration that was very fluid and lasted for years. And I had tiny little intervals of creative blocks in there. But for some reason, I think it's stress too. I think when I'm experiencing more stress, that I struggle to be as creative as I would like. So these little exercises help greatly with that. I love this green in here, so I'm gonna mute these out a little bit. The dark is really beautiful too. I just want to add some water and kind of give this watercolor a little chance to move around here. I have such a habit of covering all of my art with pigment, and I'd like to get better at that, but we all have challenges. There are just areas for some that are so smooth and so fluid, and then for others it's a real battle to, you know, refrain or add more or whatever the case may be. So what I'd like to do now is just add some more of this green in here. And these are probably going to be covered in color, and that's okay this time. It's, you know, it's the awareness first, right? I have a good friend of mine, and he's always talking about awareness levels. And if I'm not aware of it, it's going to be a little tough to address it. So this is great, though. I am really liking the look of the mark making being on the outside. I think the next one, some of the next projects, I do want to focus on specifically keeping more white. I do like a lot of color. You know, and I've talked many times about being driven to uniformity, and that's, you know, that's one of my challenges. And if it's one of yours, boy, I feel it for you. Like I said, we all have different, so we just find tools and we find ways around it. Okay, I think those are really cool so far. You know what I'm thinking I'd like to do is let these dry, and then I'm thinking of adding another layer of watercolor. I'll let them dry and we'll see where we're at. I let these dry, and they're still a little damp, but I wanted to catch them before they're completely dry. And I want to add some spatter of the color, and I think I'd like to, let's do some burnt umber. You want your brush pretty wet. I did go ahead and grab my fan brush for this. Oh, I love the spatter. That one's still really wet. This one's drier. Oh, that's real pretty. I love the dark, and I also love to spatter with water, but the dark gives you such a nice look. This is still pretty wet, which is okay. That's just going to give us some more interest to these. I want to put some right there because it's pretty barren right there, which barren, it can be a good thing, gives the eye a place to rest. Okay, the nice thing about this, when you let it dry a little bit, you can get some really beautiful rings of color, and I want to see if that's happening yet. Just going to take a little paper towel. Oh, took it completely off. Kind of let it soak into the paper. That's the amazing thing about watercolor, is you can get some amazing effects, but it's such a timing medium, art medium. It really does require some patience and all that good stuff. So I'll let that sit for a few. I did grab my little gold, and I think I would love to add some gold spatter at this point too. Also, just like I was saying with that timing, you want to get your water spatters on before it's completely dry, because I've found a lot of the times that it gets zero effect if it's completely dry. That's if you let it sit. There's a caveat to that. If you do some water while it's completely dry and you let the water soak in for a couple minutes, you could come back with a paper towel and really remove the color. So there is a little bit more to it than I initially said. Oh, I love the gold. I'm really enjoying these marks underneath, and I want to go over top with some white. Okay, I'll be back when this is dry. So these are all almost completely dry, and I got some really beautiful gold shimmer in these, and not too much. I think less is more with the shimmer, because then it really makes it special. I've got some puddles here, so I'm just gonna come in and dry these puddles, and look at that. I still ended up with such beautiful shimmer. It didn't take any of it away. And then the black, the burnt umber little specks are showing up somewhat, but they didn't give me that effect. I think it's not watered down enough, but you can get a beautiful ring around your colors when you spatter, but it's a balance. You've got to just kind of play with it. So what I'd like to do before these are really completely dry is just take some water here, big dirty water, and my fan brush, and just add some watermarks in here as well. This is one of the things I love, and I really need to edit myself and not go completely wild with this. So, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and leave that to dry, and we will do some more stuff to this. All right, so far I think these are pretty cool. What I'd like to do now is, I've got this little teeny tiny ladder drawn in here, and I'm really feeling ladders for this piece in all four of them. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start with my large chiseled edge Sharpie and do some mark making on top of it. I've got a fine liner Sharpie, a gel Sharpie, and my Signo Uniball white gel pen. I really like how these came out. So the ladders just came into my mind when I was looking at these before they were finished, and that's what came to me. So I'm glad I went ahead and went with that idea. And I do like all the little scribbles. I really like the contrast it brings to these. So I do need to remember to sign them. And I hope you give this a shot. These, you know, mark making and layering paint and then mark making some more, and you could just keep going. I could have layered more paint on top of these, but I really like the way they look now. So it's layers always bring the magic, and I have found that to be true with watercolor too. So hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you real soon. Have a great day.